ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the national headquarters of the Theosophical Society in America. My name is John Chianchosi. I'm the Director of Public Programs. At this time, I request that you silence your cell phones and other noise-making electronic devices. This evening's presentation is being streamed live, and I also welcome our friends watching through the internet. The Theosophical Society promotes study, meditation, and service. We encourage open-minded inquiry into the world religions, philosophy, science, and the arts. And we have a deep respect for the unity of all life. Our goal is to help people explore the spiritual path so as to arrive at a deeper understanding regarding the wisdom of the ages. And very importantly, we do not believe that this wisdom is limited to any one tradition, and thus we offer programs from all the traditions. I do invite you to pick up one of our program catalogs in which you'll find the programs being offered during the months of February and March. The next one will be coming out soon. These programs are also listed on our website, and there you can register for those that are of interest to you. The Theosophical Society is a membership organization, and we're always very happy to welcome new members and renewing members. And it is the best way to support the work that we are doing here. And members do receive some privileges. However, what we offer here is open to the public at large, and everyone is always welcome. And thank you for coming out, especially on a cold night like tonight. Very brave souls here, obviously motivated, true seekers. Thank you. It gives me great pleasure to be able to introduce once again a good friend, Pablo Sender, who used to be here on a permanent basis and used to give many more talks, and now it's just the occasional once or twice a year when we drag him away from Crotona, bring him from the nice warm climate to this miserable cold. But at least he gets to see the snow, so that's nice. Pablo Sender is known to probably everyone here. He has a PhD in biological sciences, so he's well versed in the sciences. But he became a member of the Theosophical Society in his native Argentina when he was very, very young, younger than he is now. Since then, he has become so deeply versed in this teaching and this wisdom that he has presented theosophical lectures, seminars, and classes around the world. He is also the author of Evolution of the Higher Consciousness, which is a book that we have available for you here this evening. And he has written many articles that have been published in several theosophical journals around the world. Tonight we are so happy that he is with us, and he will speak on a cosmic perspective on human consciousness. Please join me in welcoming Pablo Sender.
Thank you, John. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming, as John said, braving the weather. I left home in California. It was 70 and sunny, but I'm happy to see snow. We don't see snow over there, so I'm really happy to be here. I lived here for 9 years and have a lot of friends, and it's always nice to come back. And tonight we are going to explore a subject that is not all that common, I think. Normally when we think of spirituality, we think of an individual struggling to learn how to deal with life, how to go beyond suffering, how to develop virtues or wisdom. There are different views, but it's generally a perspective that is centered on the individual. And this is only natural because we experience the world through this individual form. Now, the Theosophical tradition proposes a different view which Blavatsky, for example, one of the founders of the Theosophical Society, would call an esoteric view. Esoteric means something that is inner, as opposed to exoteric, something that is outer. So the perception that we are individuals is based on the outer. We relate to the world, we learn that I am this body, different from the other bodies. The senses bring information that develops a mind that is based on the senses. And then our whole worldview comes from that point of view. The reason why Blavatsky called this view esoteric is because it's centered on things that are beyond our senses. And this is, to begin with, it is a challenge, because if it is beyond our senses, then how do we relate to it? But the fact that it's beyond our senses doesn't mean that it's beyond our perception. There are different layers of perception. According to the Theosophical teachings, there is a spiritual perception that is beyond the senses and the mind that comes out of the sensory activity. And little by little, we may learn about these things from books and people and teachers, but little by little, there is a way in which we can start verifying all of this. So what I'm going to present is a view of a human being as a fragment of the cosmos in a certain way. It's difficult to put it in words. No word really is appropriate for this. Sometimes you see in some philosophies, you hear about the drop in the ocean, the spark in the fire. And those are good analogies to understand human beings. So we will go through this, and hopefully by the end of the talk we will have a better idea of what I mean. Let us start with an essential concept, that is the idea of the macrocosm and the microcosm. Macro means big, micro being small. Most of the quotes are from Blavatsky. There will be a couple that are not from her, and you will see the author there. And Blavatsky wrote, "You all know your earthly pedigree, but who of you has ever traced all the links of heredity, not only physical, but astral, psychic, and spiritual? None seem to know the indissoluble link connecting their souls to the one universal self." So we start from the point of view that we are far more than this physical body. There are other aspects in our consciousness that we are going to explore briefly. And where do those aspects come from? I identify with my family because my body came from it. I may do a DNA test and say that I'm coming from this region of the world, that region of the world, but that's only the body. Where are we coming from on other levels of being? So Blavatsky says also, man is a microcosm. She wrote in the 19th century, there was the normal language was a gender language, but also with the word man in particular, it comes from the Sanskrit root that means the thinker. Manu, for example, is the thinker. And Blavatsky explains in her writings that by man she means any entity in the cosmos that has the ability to think. There are other entities like animals, for example, who do not think in the way we do. They have their own kind of intelligence, but it's not by means of thinking and reasoning. There are entities that are like celestial beings who also don't think. They have an intuitive perception. So the idea is that human beings are that stage in cosmic manifestation, in cosmic evolution, where the process of thinking is active, and that's what she calls man. So she says that we, humanity, are the microcosm, a small cosmos. she says, as a whole, we contain every element that is found in the universe, the macrocosm. So every element in the universe is found in our cells. Now, we know this from a physical point of view. Our bodies are made of stardust. You know, when there is a supernova and then the sun explodes and all the particles go off in the cosmos, eventually generate a nebula, a planet, a human being. So this matter came from a sun, for example. We know that. But when Blavatsky is talking about every element, she's also talking about emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. The cosmos in the Theosophical view is a living entity with intelligence on all the planes, just as we as human beings are more than the physical body. And any entity in the cosmos, any force in the cosmos, any kind of matter, not only physical but also beyond the physical, everything is represented in human beings because we are a microcosm. We are a small sample of the totality of the cosmos. And this is very important, as we are going to see. So she also says the esoteric sciences have the double object of A, proving man to be identical in spiritual and physical essence with both the absolute principle and with God in nature. So both spiritually and physically, our essence is the essence of the deity, is the essence of, when she says the absolute principle is the ultimate reality. The Theosophical view doesn't regard God as something that is out there, outside the cosmos. We are of the substance of the divine. Again, on all the levels, from the physical to the spiritual. And part of the esoteric sciences, as she calls it here, is one of the aims is to prove this, at least theoretically, so that rationally you see the rationale behind this. And then through the spiritual practice, you start working to try to perceive this to the extent that you can at the moment. And then the second aim, B, demonstrating the presence in humanity of the same potential powers as exist in the creative forces of nature. So the idea is that the forces that build the cosmos are present in us. Now, this is not to say that we can snap our fingers and create a solar system. As we are going to see, we are a smaller manifestation of the cosmos. Now, at the physical level, we have a lot of creative powers. We know the creative power to produce a physical life. But there are many other creative powers, not only physically, but at the emotional level, mental level, on all the levels there is a creative power. When we think, we are generating forces, we are generating images that actually may become influences on the world and also becomes a little universe because we move inside what we are constantly producing emotionally and mentally. We think that we have to pay attention to our physical actions. We know physical actions have effects outside. What we are not so aware is that also our emotions and our thoughts are real forces. They really produce effects, whether we realize them or not. So this is because we are a spark of the divine. And just as the divine creates the universe, we create our own universe. Of course, this is known in the New Age. These ideas have been spread, sometimes, in my view, a little exaggerated or superficially, but essentially those ideas are correct. Now, the problem is that when we look at this without what we are going to consider, it's very easy to say, okay, I have creative powers, I can create things around or situations, then let me use my powers to create situations that are pleasant. Try to create whatever I want. A car, a wife, a house. Now, from the Theosophical point of view, that is not the wise way to use our cosmic powers, and we will see a little of that. So she says, let us study a human being, therefore, but if we separate him for one moment from the universal whole, or view him in isolation, we shall either land in black magic or fail most ingloriously in our attempt. The attempt being the realization of our true nature. You see, this is what is essential. If for a moment we think of ourselves as separate from the whole or in isolation, she says we will either land in black magic. That's how at the time they used this term to talk about people who would use the creative powers in selfish ways. That, in Blavatsky's words, is what she calls black magic. From the Theosophical view, if we look at ourselves in isolation from the rest and try to use these powers to benefit myself in isolation from the whole, then that is a misuse of the powers. Just as with the physical powers too. Blavatsky says in another book, when we have anything, if we use it selfishly, we are not only generating a karma for the whole of humanity and suffering for the whole of humanity, but also for ourselves. In our next lifetime, we will have to pay that debt because anything that is given to us as a representative of the whole. And we need to learn to use it for the benefit of the whole, which includes ourselves because we are part of the whole, but not for myself in isolation from the rest. These are all, every one of these themes could cover a whole lecture. I'm just trying to give a certain background so that we understand where we are going. So because we are a small sample of the universe, there are certain correlations between the cosmic and the human principles or elements or aspects. We are a sample of the universe, but we are constantly connected to the whole of the universe. We are not isolated. We know now that what we do physically affects the planet. Before we didn't know. We didn't have an awareness of that. We thought we could do whatever we wanted, and the planet was going to be there. Now we are aware that every action is connected to the whole planet. The same happens on all levels, and not only to the planet, but to the whole cosmos. So we will see a few of these correlations. So again, Blavatsky says, as in the microcosm, man, so in the macrocosm, or the universe. Every organ, in quotation marks, in the cosmos is a sentient entity, and every particle of substance, from the physical up to the spiritual atom, is a cell, a nerve center. You may be familiar with this image, which looks like neurons, and the connections of the neurons if you have seen images of the neurons, but this is actually a representation of what is called the cosmic web, which is how the galaxies are connected, and the form resembles the nervous system. It's very similar. What Blavatsky says here is that just as in the human being, in the cosmos, there are organs, in quotation marks, not that there is a cosmic liver floating somewhere there, but there are forces that in the cosmos have a similar function to what the liver has in us. And just as the liver is not just a mechanical thing, but these are cells with a particular form, with a particular consciousness, with a particular function, these are living beings, the cosmos, the cosmic functions, are also mediated by living beings, which religions call them angels, devas, etc. In the Judeo-Christian tradition, normally we don't study much about the functions of the angels. They seem like kind of decorative things up there in heaven. But in most traditions, angels are actually rulers of the cosmos, of the functions in nature. So this is what Blavatsky is saying here. Everything in the cosmos, it represents a kind of function, and let me read the last part because it continues in the next slide. So every particle of substance, from the physical up to the spiritual atom, so not only on the physical plane, but all the way to the spiritual plane, is a cell, a nerve center, which communicates with the brainstuff, or that cosmic substance, on the plane of divine thought, in which the prime ideation is produced. So let me unpack that. The idea is that, she says, the cosmos is generated by an intelligence, not a human intelligence, not a deity that thinks and says, okay, today I'm going to do the quarks, and tomorrow I'm going to bring them together and do a hydrogen atom. There is an intelligence that is behind the laws of the cosmos. The scientists see that the cosmos is so finely tuned to produce structures that is amazing. The odds for the charge of the electron and the rate of expansion and the flatness of the universe, everything is very finely tuned so that structures and life can appear. So they say it's not really possible that this came out randomly. So the other option seems to be, okay, there is an intelligence behind. But we know science is allergic to that idea. So they say, okay, let us say something that is a little more plausible. There are infinite cosmoses. Infinite cosmoses where in none of them there is matter. In some of them there may be matter, but not structures. And we are in the one that everything was perfectly tuned for life to appear. So this is the idea of the multiverse, etc., which is a device to hide the fact that the cosmos cannot happen randomly as it is. So this is what Blavatsky calls the ideation, the intelligence, the primordial ideation of the divine thought, which produces the cosmos, which is behind the laws of nature. So everything in the cosmos is connected to this intelligence. Again, don't think of this in a concrete way. The intelligence is a ball of energy. They are connected to other things. The intelligence is pervading everything. We are the expression of this intelligence. What I call my intelligence is the divine thought acting through this brain. Same with all of you. So then she says occultism. She used this word in the 19th century before it was associated to other things today. But occultism mainly means occult is that which is hidden. So occultism is the spiritual path that is based on the hidden aspects of nature and the universe. So occultism teaches the secret laws and forces of the universe and man. As he is a little copy of the universe, he is governed by the same laws. There is in man a center or focus corresponding to each center of force or power in the universe. So what she's saying here is that in our body, in our non-physical aspects of our nature, there are centers that are connected to the cosmos. For example, this is one diagram that she has in her teachings, in the esoteric teachings. Here we see manifested logos, that is the deity. Prakriti is the cosmic substance, spiritual substance from which everything will come. Mahat is the universal mind. So these are all cosmic principles which are connected. This represents our spiritual nature. They are all connected to our spiritual nature, and this is connected to our physical nature. So what is going on in the cosmos is connected to our body. This is known in some, for example, in yoga, you will see that there are some meditations where you focus on the right eye or on one or the other of the nostrils, etc., and you connect to different forces in the cosmos. So the reason why I bring this up, this is, again, a very complex science in itself, but it's that when we are speaking, this is a representation of the word that produced the cosmos. The force that produces the cosmos is reflected on lower and lower planes and is manifested in our voice. And because of that, the use of mantras, if we know how to use them, can produce amazing results, even physical results. There are some yogis that can manifest physical objects. So all of this it's something that is happening right now in all of us. To give you an example of these different correlations, the wisdom nature in us, which in Theosophical literature is called buddhi. The word buddhi is from the Sanskrit and is the source of the word awakening or enlightenment. It is connected in our bodies, in our organs, to the heart. We are now, or some movements now with scientific leanings are discovering that the heart has its own consciousness, that it can affect our brain consciousness, and there are exercises where we can, correlate the two. There is much more that is involved here, but the heart is particularly connected to our wisdom nature, and so is the planet Mercury. In astrology, the planet Mercury is connected to the mind, but Theosophical teachings say that it's actually the higher aspect of our mind that is in touch with the wisdom nature. It's also connected to the color yellow. So if you meditate, there are meditations with visualizations of colors. The color yellow will tend to awaken the wisdom nature. Other colors will tend to awaken other aspects of ourselves. It's connected to the musical note mi or e. So again, a mantra chanted in this note is going to act on our Buddhic nature. It is connected also to the Anahata chakra, which is the chakra in front of the heart. So these are a few. There are many other correlations. And the idea, I'm bringing this up because this is the picture that we start seeing. We are not isolated. We are connected to every aspect of the cosmos. Every action in the cosmos is affecting us, and we are affecting every action around us. And knowing about all of this may be useful for a deeper or a more, let's say a deeper aspect of the practice of meditation if we want to work on particular principles of our being. But again, that's not the aim of this talk. I'm bringing all this up just to give you some examples of what HPB is saying. So she says when we understand this, we better comprehend the necessity of first studying correspondences between our principles. By principles, she means the different aspects of our being, and the direct roots of these in the universe. And this is where we are going to focus mainly. So the different aspects in ourselves are not only correlated to all these things that I showed you, but most importantly, they are rooted in cosmic aspects, and this is where we are going to focus our attention. So let's see a little about the constitution of human beings. In the Theosophical tradition, the idea is that we are constituted by 7 different aspects or principles. There are 3 of them that constitute our spiritual nature, 4 of them that constitute our personal nature. The body, the vitality of the body, our emotions and our thoughts, those 4 aspects constitute the lower nature. And there are 3 that are the essence of our spiritual, higher nature. We are going to focus on these 3. So, a quote just for you to, it has a lot of technical terms, don't worry about that, but to give you the sense of what she is trying to convey, she says, "Let us remember that when we speak of men, it is a perfect analogy with the cosmos. That which we call Parabrahman, which is the absolute reality, the ultimate reality in the cosmos. And the first logos, that is the first manifestation of that ultimate reality, is in human beings, Atma and Buddhi." We will see that, I'll show you that. But basically what she says, when we talk about the ultimate reality, we are talking about the ultimate reality within you. When we talk about the deity, we talk about the deity within you. Within you is the deity. Within you is the ultimate reality. The third logos is manas. We will see a little more of this. So let me show you very briefly the words that we use for the higher principles so that we can continue exploring this. The highest of the 7 principles is what we can call spirit. Spirit as the highest aspect in us. In Western traditions, spirit, soul, all these words are used in very different ways by different authors. In Theosophical literature, spirit is the divine, is the higher self. The word Atman is Sanskrit, and it means I-ness. But it's used in a technical term for the higher self. Then we have Buddhi that we saw before in the slides. We can call it the soul, and this is the wisdom nature in us. And then we have manas. We also saw this means the thinker, or comes from the root from which manu, the thinker, comes also. Higher ego, the word ego is Greek and also means I-ness, just like Atman. The idea in the Theosophical tradition is that there is a higher aspect of our I-ness, which is the source of spiritual self-awareness. The sense of I exist comes from what is called the higher ego, not I, this body, I, Pablo, exist. The pure sense of being, we know that we exist. Now, when that awareness of being expresses itself through the body and the senses, then it's reduced to I am this body, I am this individuality. But when we can perceive beyond the body, and I'm not talking about astral projection because after all, in the astral body, we are still a separate entity. I'm talking about in meditation, when we go to the essence, to the higher aspect of manas, there is a pure sense of being that is not separate, that is not self-centered, that is not seeking with needs, with seeking this or that, complaining or happy. It is a pure self-awareness that is perfect in itself. So these are the 3 higher principles. When they express through our personality, through our thoughts, emotions, our body, then they get narrowed down and they get distorted to some extent because we identify with this separate body. So those 3 principles are not different from the divine principles in the cosmos. So let me give you a few quick quotes. Blavatsky says, the higher self, Atma, you can say Atma or Atman, it's just different grammar in Sanskrit. The higher self is the inseparable ray of the universal and one self. Inseparable ray. Myself, my real self, the higher self, is inseparable from the one self. I am the one self. You are the one self. We all are fragmentary expressions of the one self Not that the one self is different from us. We are that one self. You are all of us. But you are aware only of that part of yourself that is manifesting through that particular body. Any mystic perceives this truth. Any mystic that has a real mystical experience perceives, I am everybody and everything around. I am the bird, I am the stone, I am the tree, I am the person that is walking around. Consciousness is not limited to this body when we learn how to transcend the limitations of the body. When that happens, we realize I am truly the one self. Because there is no difference. What I call myself is just, we can give an analogy. You have the sunlight. If you have a magnifying glass and you have a ray of light there, that ray is not different from the light around. It assumes, it looks like something separate, individual, because of the magnifying glass. But that light is the sunlight, which is not separate. And you may have many rays, but that is the same light. It's only because of the different magnifying glasses that it looks like they are different. So, my Atman is not mine. There is only one Atman. We all are expressions of Atman. So let's say the spirit or Atman is a ray of the universal oneself. What about the next principle, Buddhi, the soul? Buddhi, the divine soul, is a spark which issued from the pure essence of the universal oversoul, which Blavatsky calls Alaya. I have a quote where she calls it in this way. That's why I'm adding it. So a spark issued from the essence of the universal oversoul. There is a universal Buddhi, and we are a spark within it. Or in other words, this is from another piece of writing from Blavatsky, The Voice of the Silence, all is impermanent in man except the pure bright essence of Alaya, this universal Buddhi. Man is its crystal ray. You see again the idea of a ray of, a beam of light immaculate within. That being is thy life guide and thy true self, the watcher and the silent thinker. So again, we have that Buddhi is a ray of a universal principle. Blavatsky sometimes you called it oversoul, taking it from Emerson. And finally, the third principle in our higher nature, manas, the higher ego. Our ego is a ray of the universal mind, individualized for the space of a cosmic life cycle. So during this cycle of manifestation, a ray of the universal mind assumes a kind of individuality, during which cycle it gets experience in numberless reincarnations, and after the cycle returns to its parent source, the universal mind. So again, my mind is a universal mind, acting through my brain, as I said. Your mind is a universal mind, acting through your brain. If you think you are the body, then you can say, well, I'm an expression of the universal mind. But the body will be gone, and you will be still there. And the soul will be gone at the end of the cycle of evolution, and you will still be there. And you will realize that what you are is just a universal mind. So a way to put it, graphically, we have these three universal principles, and a human being is just a center within this. This is our higher nature. This is what reincarnates in different bodies, life after life. And it's nothing but a ray of each one of these principles. Essentially, this is what we are. One more point before we go to the meaning for the spiritual life. There is another way, more intricate way in which we are connected with the cosmos. There is the idea of hierarchies of celestial beings. In many traditions, there is this idea of different orders of celestial beings. Normally we think they are out there. Blavatsky says the hierarchies of celestial beings are directly connected and forever linked with man. So there is an eternal link between us and all the celestial beings in the cosmos. Every one of them. Within us, there is an expression of every order of celestial being in the cosmos. This is what Blavatsky means when she says every element in the cosmos is within us. Since man is a microcosm, all the hierarchies of the heavens exist within him. You see, we think of angels out there. We have that essence in here. Out and in is just an illusion. When we talk about all, there are some traditions where they try to approach it this way, like in Tibetan Buddhism, in Dzogchen, many times they say, all the Dhyani Buddhas and all these deities, they are actually aspects of our consciousness. And this is exactly what Blavatsky means. Our consciousness is the manifestation of all these celestial beings. The 7 hierarchies, Blavatsky says, of course, she said that the number 7 is essentially the manifestation of the cosmos. So there are 7 root hierarchies of celestial beings. And she says the 7 hierarchies of being have a direct bearing upon and relation to one of the human principles. Remember, I talked about 7 principles. Since each of these hierarchies is, in fact, the creator and source of the corresponding human principle. So, for example, if we pollute the earth, our bodies will be polluted, right? There is a complete connection, physical connection with the earth. Our bodies are made of the earth, so we cannot separate ourselves from it. All our other principles, and the earth is a celestial being, Gaia, the Greeks would call it. All our other principles are made of the substance of these celestial beings, just as our bodies are made of the substance of the earth. And in the same way that whatever happens on earth affects our bodies, all the activities of the celestial beings affect the different aspects of our consciousness. This is the foundation of astrology. When we say that Mercury has an effect on the way we look at life, Mercury is the physical body of a celestial being which is connected to our higher mind. All this, the idea here is that all the aspects of our beings are derived directly from these hierarchies of celestial beings. So this is the diagram that Blavatsky used. All these different colors represent different aspects of our being. And these are the different hierarchies of celestial beings, which are also sevenfold. There are 7, and they all are sevenfold. So we don't need, again, to go into details, but all our principles derived from them. Perhaps another way in which we can show it, suppose this is one hierarchy of beings, of celestial beings, the 2nd, the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7. We are the confluence of all these celestial beings. That's why every element in the universe is within a human being, because a human being is that part in evolution when all the forces come together. Once we transcend the human stage of evolution, this doesn't happen any longer. It's not needed any longer. So we are one of these hierarchies of celestial beings that will provide our own essence for a future humanity. Actually, Blavatsky says that we are the 4th hierarchy of celestial beings. We, as the spiritual nature, the 4th hierarchy is the one that comes and incarnates, and all the other hierarchies are giving their essence to generate what we call a human being, which is a stage of experience of this hierarchy. she always says, we are not physical bodies. We are, the idea of the fallen angels is because essentially we are a hierarchy of celestial beings which at this point in evolution come into the physical plane to have this kind of experience. But the physical body is something that comes and goes. It's a secondary aspect of our nature. We are really this celestial being. Every time we die, we leave behind the body, the emotions, the thoughts, and we become again this angel. Until we have to come back, because in the Theosophical view, there is a purpose for this journey. But the point here is that this is more or less what Blavatsky is saying. Within us are all these forces in the universe. So every rational being called man on earth, and she refers, in any place in the cosmos where there is a thinker, we have the same condition. That stage in evolution, all the hierarchies come together for that stage of evolution. So every rational being is of the same essence and possesses potentially all the attributes of the higher eons or celestial beings. Within us are all the forces, attributes of the celestial beings. So this is the last section. We come to this. Let us pause and try to assimilate a little the view that I'm trying to convey. I'm not a separate individual. I am a knot of the universe. Each one of us is a knot, let's say, in a net, where all the threads come together, and we are linked to the whole net. You can untie the knot, and there is no knot any longer. Because the knot, this separate being, is temporary. What we are is all the threads, in a sense, the totality of the threads. So we are this, there is the cosmos, and the cosmos comes together for the time being, generates a human being, and all the elements are there. So from this point of view, the spiritual path is not something about gaining something for this separate person, because this separate person is an illusion. We will never be satisfied by keep adding to the separate person, because we are infinitely much more than the personal. We need to realize that we are the cosmic nature, eternal, immutable, immortal, all-powerful. Now, an enlightened being is a person that realizes his or her true nature while being in the body. So even right now we are all of that, but we are not aware of it. Enlightenment is being aware that, yes, I'm not this body, I'm not Pablo, I'm not this separate being. I am the whole, expressing through Pablo, or whoever, through your personality, but also through all the other personalities, because there is only one being. So how can we access the cosmic nature? So HPV says our principles, the 7 aspects of our being, are the 7-stringed lyre of Apollo, truly. In this our age, man's faculties are no better than the loose strings of the violin. But the occultist who knows how to tighten and tune them will extract divine harmony from them. So all these powers are in us, all these forces, these essences, but they are in chaos. So an important aspect of the spiritual path is to bring order to our consciousness, to not only our consciousness, but our whole being. And as we begin to attune ourselves with the universe, then all these aspects begins to express. For example, in the Yoga Sutras, which is a text, a foundational text of yoga, yoga's a spiritual path, not the asanas only, written by Patanjali, he says, for the person that I think it was with Satya, with truth. For the person that practices truth, all the treasures of the world fall into the feet of this person. But that person doesn't need them, really. I don't remember with one of the yamas or niyamas it was. The idea being that as we get in harmony with the cosmos, we come in the flow of the cosmos, and everything that is needed or that has to happen happens naturally because we are not obstructing any longer that flow. Now, the moment that I want something for myself and I am acting from the point of view that I am something separate, I create this harmony. As I realize that I am the cosmos, then I don't care any longer about focusing about this separate personality, and paradoxically, everything flows. It's hard not to take it from the point of view of personal benefit. I'm trying to say actually the opposite. You know, we all naturally are seeking happiness or whatever you call it, peace or whatever it is. But we are doing it in the opposite way. We are seeking it by focusing on what we are not. And what we need to do is the opposite. We need to attune ourselves with the totality, and then the problem disappears. She says, these 7 planes correspond to the 7 states of consciousness in man. It remains with him to attune the 3 higher states in himself to the 3 higher planes in the cosmos. So remember, our minds are not individual, they are the universal mind. So an important practice is to realize that we are the universal mind. There is meditation, there are techniques of meditation for this, there are exercises during the day to learn how to regard life from the point of view of the divine mind, etc. This weekend we will work, or on Saturday we have a meditation day where we will do some meditations for this. But the idea is that what we need to do is to start realizing I am the universal mind, not an individual mind. I am this universal wisdom/love. I'm not my attractions and repulsions. I am the ultimate reality, which is a silent, pure beingness, Blavatsky called it. Beingness in the sense of an abstract sense of being. I'm not this separate being. And this is what, by seeking this, with our studies, with meditation, with action, according to these principles, is that we start attuning our personal nature with the cosmic nature. So Subba Rao, who was a disciple of the same teacher that Blavatsky was, and they were contemporary, he says, the mental and spiritual consciousness of the individual becomes the general consciousness of Brahman. Brahman is the ultimate reality in Vedanta. When the barrier of individuality is wholly removed, when we remove the idea, the sense that I am a separate individual, I become the ultimate reality, because I was never anything but the ultimate reality. And when the 7 powers in the microcosm are placed in rapport, are attuned with the 7 powers in the macrocosm. So when we harmonize our nature, this individual nature, with the cosmic nature, and we realize that we are not individuals, that this individuality is just a passing, coming together of forces, but we are the ultimate reality, then that is enlightenment, peace, nirvana, whatever you want to call it, at least from the Theosophical point of view. So this Saturday, as I was saying, we will work on some meditations, trying to work in this direction, realizing our cosmic nature. But this is more or less the theoretical foundation for what we are going to do. So is there any comment or question? Wait for the microphone so that our friends on the internet can hear the question too.
Thank you, Pablo. I have the microphone. Just raise your hand and I'll bring it to you.
I know this is a lot of information, but I come not very often, so I take advantage to, put out there things that I can't normally.
So that was a great talk, by the way. You're right, it's a lot to unpack, so I'll watch it again. There was one thing that came to mind when you were talking about the 7 spheres, and there were 7 inside there, and it could just be arbitrary or coincidence, but I've been thinking lately about forgiveness, and there was something in the Christian scriptures that says you forgive 7 times 7. And I just took that it meant like a lot, but I'm wondering if there might be something more to that. And then there's, in the Lord's Prayer, there's one whole triad of it is you forgive as you're forgiven. Mm-hmm. And as as this expression kind of starts to dissolve, people tend to enter into forgiveness or start looking for forgiveness. So I'm wondering if there's something that kind of ties together in that.
Yeah. Yes, I always notice that idea of the 7 times 7. Blavatsky would talk several times about specifically 7 times 7 is an important practical aspect of the work. I don't know how that is connected to forgiveness unless he was meaning something else esoterically, but I'm sure that is related in some way. But what I think is important, all this idea in the Christian religion where you say, and in many other religions too, when you say, if you do this, God will do that for you. We normally take it in a transactional way. We say, okay, I'll do this because I want that, so this is the price to pay for that I want. But from a deeper point of view, it is just a statement of what I am saying here, that our action and the action of the divine is the same, because there is no real separation. So our forgiveness is a forgiveness of the divine. There is no real separation. So if, this is why Blavatsky said, we can never regard human beings in isolation, because then we are going to fail in our spiritual aim, or we are going to abuse the powers, because there is no real separation between the divine action and the human action. They are correlated. So that may be something to think about.
Thank you, Pablo. That was amazing as always. I don't know how to ask. I'm not even sure what it is. My question is, but what I'm thinking about is people who have a pretty drastic illness, and how much their attitude affects the outcome, and how some people seem to be able to heal themselves. I mean, they have other people helping them. And then there are other people whose attitude from the get-go is, I'm going to beat this, I can do this, but in fact they don't, it beats them. So what's going on there? Like I said, I'm not even sure what my question is, but if you could address that. Thank you.
Well, that is, again, we tend to think we are an isolated part of the universe, because that is how we are educated. If you want anything, you just have to push, to use your willpower, and you have to bend life to your wishes. And the truth is that what we are is the result of the expression of all these celestial beings. We are one of them as a soul. And whatever is going to happen is a result of all the forces in the universe working in that direction. So this is what we call karma. But some people, drink seawater and they are cured of cancer. And then they say this is the cure, and many others try it and it doesn't work. because it was never the cure. I mean, sure, there may be some element there that may help, but if the karma, if the cosmic experience was in that direction, it's going to happen. If it doesn't go in that direction, this is everything that happens in our life is the whole cosmos going in that direction. If we think we are this separate entity, we are a puny force. So it's just random. So what is just random whether something works or not? So what is our attitude, spiritually speaking? We should try to take everything that happens to us, everything that is given to us, and see how we can approach it from the point of view of the totality, of realizing our true nature, of, helping others to realize their true nature. And then the results are not in our hands. This is why the Bhagavad Gita says, just do the right action and forget the results. It may work, it may not work. Our duty is in the action, not in the result. So if the karma goes in that direction, it will work. If not, it won't, but you did the right thing. And then also we have to realize, the physical body with all the importance that it has for the experience when we are awake, it's a very small part of our nature. We are naturally body-centered, but this body lasts 80 years, 100 years, and then in the Theosophical view, we live for another 1,000 or 2,000 years as a spiritual being before incarnating, unless we are really attached to the physical plane and we come back, if we are very materialistic. But the experience of being within a body is a very small part of our experience as a soul. And of course, while we are in the body is important. It's not that this is not important, but it's a very small part of our lives. So I think we need to start working in the direction of beginning to understand ourselves from the cosmic perspective, to regard our life from the cosmic perspective. All that may seem artificial at the beginning, but little by little it happens. And you say, there are these little exercises. This that is happening now will be important in 10 minutes, will be important in 10 days, in 10 years. And we see that, maybe this that is happening is not really important in the wider picture. You can widen your picture a lot. And when you start widening your picture, then you just engage with life without being, without trying to have a grip on everything that happens. You understand this is a dance. Let's dance with it, with life, and keep moving. And it's fine. Things come, we act, and it's not all that important. What is important is how we act, not what happens. Yes.
Thank you, Pablo. I'm new to, this was fascinating. I'm a new member of the Theosophical Society, but I think I've been looking for something like this for a long time, so I've begun reading. The way through, the reincarnation, if I understand, of the spirit is how our spirit follows the pathway to the ultimate consciousness, I guess, the Brahman. Mm-hmm. And the karma is, and so is this correct? Our understanding of karma and how we see ourselves and our actions is that one of the main exercises, like maybe through meditation and yoga, that we understand that better, so that we let go of all these physical things that we hold on to so tightly, when we should be focusing on our spirit.
Yeah.
I don't know if I make any sense. Thank you.
I mean, all these teachings can be taken on different levels. The most basic level of karma is everything that is happening to us is a result of previous actions. We may like it, may not like it, but there is a reason for this. It's not just that life is unfair. So that's the first level of karma. But a deeper aspect of karma is what I was just saying, that the whole universe is engaged in a movement. We are within that movement. If we think that we are this separate drop, the drop is, going in a river from here to there, we need to realize we are the river itself. And then this is our movement. Our movement, everything that happens to our personality is what we want to happen, but not we, Pablo. We, each of our separate illusory beings. We as the true nature that is behind. Our life is the expression of what we really are. And that's what we call karma. If we understand that, then we stop fighting with life. We understand that there is an order behind things. And our consciousness begins to position itself a little beyond whether something is pleasant or unpleasant. There is something far more important going on here than whether I feel good or not with something. So all of this helps us begin to experience life from a wider perspective, so that we don't need to make an effort to let go of this. I am attached, but somebody tells me if I want the boon of enlightenment, I have to leave it, and well, I'll pay that price. If we understand what we are, all that happens naturally.
Thank you, Pablo. It's beautiful. You actually answered a lot of my question, like with his question indirectly. Maybe just expound upon it a little bit is what I'm asking here. Individuality is something very interesting to me as I meditate and have been on the spiritual path, quote, spiritual path for a while. And kind of my goal when I'm in meditation usually is to do exactly that, is to connect more to the divine, the universal oneness, consciousness, whatever, God, right? Mm-hmm. However that can be experienced in the moment. And the more, we do that, the more we realize we're all in connection to that nature. And again, you were kind of answering the question of like individuality. It's like a huge paradox, right? Because we're desiring in our individual lives or in our ego-driven lives, we're desiring to manifest this or get a car or get a house or get a wife or a certain life, right? And then when we're going about the spiritual path, it's about letting go of all that stuff and opening to a whole nother realm, I guess. And it's just, I found it to be quite odd. Being like successful or how, like, there's not, it's like oneness, but it's a dichotomy, at least the way I'm experiencing now, going deeper and deeper into it. It's like, yeah, I want to go have a career, be successful, or however you want to call it, right? And what's more important to me is this stuff. It's like, but, so, yeah. My question is all of that.
Yeah. And that's exactly the human predicament. So I would say, the word theosophy means divine wisdom. And it's a wisdom that comes from Buddhi. That's why it is divine. It's not human wisdom, a wisdom that we get from experience or knowledge, etc. So the emphasis in the Theosophical tradition is at the level of wisdom, which the expression of wisdom is also love and compassion. But what I mean by this is that it's not that we have to try to let go of the personal goals. apply all your efforts to understand correctly what you are, and that is what will set everything in order. Like, if we are a child, we are attached to our toys. So if you tell a child, the toys are passing things, they are not really meaningful, just let go of them, that is really hard for the child. But when the child grows, then the toys fall by themselves. So as long as we think we are this separate person, as long as our consciousness is entangled with what I call thoughts, emotions, sensations, then it's hard to think that I don't have to pursue these things. But as I grow and I realize that I exist beyond all of this, I experience in meditation that my thoughts and emotions, sensations can be quiet and I am still there. Who am I when there are no thoughts, no sensations, no emotions? I don't disappear. I am something there. What is that? When I start realizing aspects of my nature that are beyond the personal, then naturally, without we even realizing it, our goals begin to change, or our aims, or our views, our pursuits. So instead of trying to fight to mimic in our external life what an enlightened being is supposed to be, let us work on the enlightenment, on realizing our true nature. And then the paradox is over. But there is a purpose for that, for that paradox. Well, in my book I explain that why the cosmic nature incarnates during the human stage as a separate individual. If this is not, who we really are, if this is a source of suffering, and there is an important process there. It's the process of developing self-awareness, that kind of awareness of ourselves. At the beginning, because that self-awareness is developed through the body, I'm aware of myself as the body. But the spiritual path is retaining that self-awareness, but purifying it, in a sense, so that eventually I realize I am the whole, I am the totality. So the self-awareness has to start from something separate. When you are the totality, there is no contrast. So you don't have the sense of I am, because everything is there. By going to the separation, you awaken the sense of I am. And then by purifying and putting it in rapport with your true nature, that ends up in the sense of I am the totality. It's more complex than that, but that's the idea. So there is a reason for this, but if we are interested in this kind of subjects, it's because we already perceive that this is not all, that the individuality is not all. And we don't need, again, to artificially leave that behind. Let us work on our true nature and everything falls in place. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Very beautiful. Let me try to put my question. I think after what you just said, living here in the physical plane, this amazingly complex cosmic process with divine hierarchies and cosmic forces for the creation of man, where all the forces and all the principles are together, from the spiritual to the physical. Mm-hmm. And then I said, there is a reason for all this process to come to the physical, for separation and then go back to unity. But what I was thinking is that being here in the physical life, you said it's just a small portion of the whole experience. Mm-hmm. But all this creation in the physical life, based on the human experience of artworks, political systems, philosophical ideas, passions, feelings, these endless creations of, all kinds of, what's the meaning of that in the cosmic history, Mm-hmm. It's just something to live, or there is something deeper, this creation of material, mm-hmm. not material things, but things that were created in the material life.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say it's both. It's, again, let us think of a child. The child plays that he or she is a doctor or this or that, and that is an important experience. Now, that something is important doesn't mean that we need to keep doing that our whole lives. There is a time for this, there is a time for this, there are different times. So the development of science, philosophy, art, political systems, all of that, is all a process of first awakening. One of the quotes is a little longer, but I didn't put this, but Blavatsky says, first we have to awaken the higher nature and then attune it with the spiritual. So the lower nature also first has to be awakened. So we start developing a more complex emotional nature through art. We start attuning our emotional nature with the spiritual nature through higher forms of art. Through philosophy and math and science, we awaken our minds. But it's all normally focused on the physical. At some point, our mind is awakened, and because of the experiences during reincarnation, we start feeling this is not all, which is what happens to us. That's why we are here. So now that mind that was awakened, that emotional nature that was awakened through, thousands of years of evolution, now we start using that to discover our true nature. So there are descriptions in theosophical literature of how civilization will be in the future when the spiritual nature in most humanity is awakened. And in some ways it's quite different, in other ways it's not too different. But civilization will keep mutating and changing. And we will never come back to certain ways because they had their own purpose and now we are older, more mature spiritually. And new ways will come up. So yes, all of that is valuable, which doesn't mean we have to get caught there. We have to keep moving. Also, Ed had raised. Yes, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. My name is Mark,
Hi,
and
Mark.
I live in the area, and I recently retired. And I worked in a nice place, a nice environment, and I find that I'm now faced with limitations, probably placed on myself, by myself, and limitations of thought, physical, body. My meditation seems redundant. And I wonder if the program that you talk about on Saturdays is a program that I might find some benefit. If you could sort of elaborate on what I might experience if I come to that program.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yes. I mean, all this is very individual, and we are not here to sell programs, and you will get enlightened. But in my life, I found it very useful and meaningful. Now, by trying these meditations for a few hours, this is something that you have to incorporate in your life. So it's not that by trying these meditations on Saturday you will be different. But my aim is to share some meditations that may help us begin to work in that direction. So one of the ways, for example, one problem we have is that we are always looking at the world, as I was saying, from the point of view that I am in this particular space, separate from you and from everybody else. And this is a habit in our consciousness that doesn't allow us to perceive that we are far more than this. So one of the things we need to do is to generate a different habit. Habits are very powerful, and also beliefs. There was a time in racing, people, running, science thought that we couldn't run faster than whatever speed, and nobody would do it until one guy broke that mark, and then every year there was somebody else running faster. The very belief that this was impossible then prevented people from running faster. So there is something very powerful in our deep deeply ingrained belief that we are an individual. One way to overcome it is to do some meditations where you, using visualization, using your reasoning, using different tools, you try to feel that you are the whole. And then during daily life also, go for a walk in the park, and instead of walking from inside your body, walk feeling that you are a sphere that is embracing the whole park, and your physical body is just one of the objects within you. The body is within you, you are not within the body. So by trying all these things, little by little something happens in consciousness. Something begins to shift. We are not so tied, so entangled with the personal. So when there is an emotion that is unpleasant, there is some space between myself and the emotion. I still feel it, but there is a memory of being far more than that. So it's easier to deal with this, or the thought, or the actions. So what we are going to do on Saturday is try some of these meditations, and I'll, try to teach this for you to try in your life. And if you find that they are useful and you practice them, probably changes will happen. In the Theosophical tradition, we don't have like one meditation that we promote, because we understand we are all different. For some people, these kind of meditations may not work. Some other kinds may work. So it's more a question of, coming and trying them. I found them very useful in my life. Ed.
Yeah, I thought you might want to do a commercial for walking the Theosophical path.
Okay, thank you. So we have several webinars. Webinars are classes and group discussions on the internet that you can tune in from home. And we have a few that are based on practices. One of them is Walking the Theosophical Path, is called, where we, for example, I would explain a few of these slides and then give you an exercise for the week. And then next week we discuss the practice of the exercise. And then we move on to the next subject. So it's something that every week you have a new exercise that you may try, and then you have a feedback. We do a feedback that may help you with the practice. We have other webinars also that we do that based on different traditions. I also and Ed participate in one based on non-duality, that we do similar things. So do check the webinars online in theosophical.org, under programs, online classes. You will see the webinars there. Yes.
We'll take a couple more questions. This gentleman had one.
Hello.
Hi.
This wasn't more of a question. It was just maybe like a little realization that I had with your talk. This whole conversation was very, very interesting to me, to us. Like maybe this for a couple months or something, I was just feeling like very, very stuck, like just having the same type of thought patterns of like not getting anywhere in life and just feeling like stuck and I'm not doing much. But like what you're talking about right now, when you like let go of your individuality and you focus on like the cosmic perspective, that everything's kind of working for a reason. What's going on out there, it's influencing who you are. And I just felt like a little bit of peace, of like just like letting go of my habits and then just trying to think like the bigger picture and not just focus on myself about what I want, what I need, but like focusing on everybody else and trying to be of service to somebody else without like getting a benefit out of it. Mm-hmm. And I just wanted to share that with you guys.
Yeah, that is a typical manifestation of the higher consciousness. Typically, and in the webinars where we discuss all these things, there are some thoughts that come to us, some feelings that are typical manifestations of when we are perceiving from the higher nature. And one of them is that sense of peace that comes when we are free, at least even if for a few seconds, from this constraint of thinking I am this little fragment. The sense I am this separate person is the only cause of suffering in the world and the cause of strife. Blavatsky says in one of her writings, the sense of separateness is the essential cause of suffering, and the only way to solve the political problems in the world is by helping people and working on ourselves to realize our non-personal nature, our cosmic nature. So that is a typical touch of the higher consciousness, also a sense of expansion or spaciousness, a sense of freedom, a sense of peace or rest. All these things are typical when we, if even for a few seconds, begin to perceive from the higher nature. The higher nature is right here. It's not only for yogis or anything. And as we work, we practice, all these things, we try to live according to this, that higher nature begins to be more and more available, and more, you are more and more in touch with it when you are doing grocery shopping or when you are meditating. So yeah, that's part of it.
We will take 2 more questions.
Thank you for everything that you said. It's pulling me back into a frame of mind that I was in a few years ago. And then I was reading everything I could get my hands on. And then one day I just stopped reading, started going to movies, started to go see comedies. I just wanted to bring joy into my life. I'm an artist, and one of the things that I do is I've been trying to retrieve a level of understanding, a level of consciousness that my people had before the Europeans arrived here. And since our language was taken, our spirituality was under lock and key, so we lost a lot of tradition, we lost a lot of culture. So it's been, and then through dreams, I do a lot of work with dreams. My great-grandmother came to me in a very powerful dream. So with her, I started, because of the dream, I started looking back and trying to find and trying to somehow divine out of the cosmos something that I could do visually, that when people looked at it, they could start to feel like, oh, okay, so this has something to do with indigenous people from this hemisphere. And there's something about those people that must have been very beautiful, because this thing that I'm looking at has a certain amount of beauty. Okay, so I could not, I chose not to try to mimic anybody else or whatever. I just wanted to bubble up from inside. So there's a lot of things that have been going on with me. And I started thinking about, okay, so I came up with this idea of quantum memory. That I would have dreams, or I would do what I can, to get in contact with the cosmos all around me, and somehow images or objects would come to be. And it's happened. I mean, I'd be doing something, all of a sudden, poof, right there is an object. And I go, oh, wow, I've got to go do that. So I make a sketch, I go into the studio, and I produce it. Okay. So, thank you. Well, that's where I'm going. It's why I came.
Yeah.
I mean, this is why I came.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find out if there's something in your technique and something, in what you do that would help facilitate what I'm trying to do. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm 76 years old. I don't have 10, 20 more years. I have to figure out, what I can do in order to make things happen that I need to have happen. Have I said enough to give you an idea?
Yeah. Now, you are not 70-something years old. That's your body. And if you can realize that that is the case, then you will connect with that source that you are talking about. Because what prevents us from connecting with our higher nature, again, is the identification, which is natural, but the identification we have with the body. The body and the separate self is a barrier to our realization with the cosmic self, let's say. Not that the personal self is bad. When we realize our true nature, the personal self is a wonderful tool. But when it's like there is the forest, and when we see only the tree, that tree is an obstacle. But the tree is the forest. Now the tree stops being an obstacle when I can see the whole tree. So the personal self is an obstacle. So all these meditations help us realize our eternal nature. With that sense, anxiety leaves, the sense that I don't have time leaves. Obviously the body has an X amount of time, but that anxiety is in the way also of creativity. So I wouldn't say in particular these techniques or those techniques will be better for you. Anything that helps you begin to realize your true nature will connect you with something that when you express it, it will be far more unique than most of the art which comes from the senses. Few people have artistic abilities and are interested in touching something beyond the personal. So it's a wonderful, task. But the important aspect is try to realize, again, our true nature. And from there, everything will come. Yes, these techniques can help you with that, as other techniques that go in that direction.
Well, thank you so much, Pablo. I know there are a couple of people who have questions.
I'll stay there for the tea and we can keep talking.
That's what I was going to suggest, that just because we finished the formal meeting doesn't mean it's the end of the discussion. Please stay for refreshments and also for further questions, discussions, communion. But as time is marching, it is an appropriate time for us to end the formal meeting, maybe with a hand of appreciation for Pablo. Thank you so much, Pablo. And as Pablo has already mentioned, and on Saturday he is teaching an all-day. It starts at 10:30 in the morning. So it's a day-long workshop, experiential workshop, where it's a meditation practices, exploring different approaches that he has titled Cosmic Meditations. And Pablo is not only knowledgeable, but he is a very sincere and authentic practitioner of these meditations, and I'm sure that what he will share will be of great benefit to anyone who comes. If you are interested in participating on Saturday and like to come and join, just go to our website and you can register there. It's good for us to know how many people are coming. Of course, you can still walk in on Saturday morning if you just remember, I forgot to register. Come along. But if you're interested, please do join us on Saturday. And if you are coming, maybe bring a lunch with you. We're not providing lunch, although there's fast food places close by. Thursday next week will be our lecture again, and this coming Thursday we're going to have Dan Hooper here. He is a PhD doctorate he's a member of the Fermilab's Theoretical Astrophysics Group and an associate professor of astronomy and astrophysics at the University of Chicago. He has spoken here on a number of occasions. He's a brilliant man, obviously, and it seems to be a good topic to follow on from tonight. His talk is going to be based on his newly released book, At the Edge of Time, and we will be doing a book signing at the end of that talk next week, having those books available. So the title of the talk next week is at the edge of time, exploring the mysteries of our universe's first seconds. If you can, please come, bring your friends, tell everyone. Thank you for coming out this evening. I know it was cold and difficult. I hope, having come, you had a profitable, rewarding experience, warm and comfortable. Enjoy some hot tea, cookies, and more discussion. Thank you all.